Good afternoon, or morning, or evening, or nighttime. Maybe it's sunny, or maybe it's rainy where you are. It's the internet, so who cares about time? Welcome to Recruiting EQ. This is episode number 76. 76 sounds like we've done a lot of episodes to me. It makes me feel like we're going to cross 100 episode threshold at some point. I guess I'll note to self, book some sort of 100th episode extravaganza in the future. This is our success and wellness panel, which has actually been very well received. People seem to like the topic. I think it's a pretty hot topic, actually, out there in the workforce and in life in general. How to balance success and wellness. Are those things at odds? Can they work together? And then one of our panelists here, Lori, and I had a conversation really around, which gave us the topic for this week, of what does success mean to you. And I think, I've given that some thought. I think we all maybe have a little bit. And so let's dive in. Let's go around the room. And if you guys can introduce yourselves and a little bit about what you do. And let's start with Lori, since we...
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lori Shimnowski. I'm a sales manager at Covenant Group. I've worked in staffing for the last 5 years. I've done a little bit of 360, so some recruitment as well, mostly client facing. And I feel like the more I talk to people, this topic of defining success and what is success and wellness has come up more and more lately with just economic pressures and just a lot of instability in the economy and politically. I think wellness has become more and more important as a part of success.
Thanks, Lori.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next?
I can jump in.
Hit it.
So my name is Gareth Booth. I'm the executive creative director and founder of The Booth. And I like to describe what we do from our clients' perspective. So I think they would describe us as an animation practice that focuses on the why behind creative decisions as much as we focus on the art itself. I've been doing that for about 2 decades. We come alongside marketing teams and global brands, ambitious B2B companies even, and help them basically simplify complex ideas and unlock that creative potential with video and animation.
Unlock that video magic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gareth. Omar?
Thanks, Rick. Happy Wednesday. Hope everyone's doing well, and thank you for joining. And Rick, thank you for having us. What a great topic.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
It's so important, right? So thank you for having us, and thank you for the topic and setting this up. I know it's a lot of work in the back end. My name is Omar. I'm a lead for leader recruitment, and what I do is I work at a hospital called Trillium Health Partners, which is the local hospital run in the Mississauga community. If you're in Toronto, you would know that, Mississauga region. And what I do in particular is I manage executive level recruitment. I manage director and VP, 2 levels of recruitment that I physically, mentally manage myself, if you will. And then I provide leadership support to the lower levels of leadership recruitment. And I am extremely excited to be here to talk about what success means to me. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. When Lori and I were talking about this, in particular, what I was thinking, Gareth, you own your own company and run your own company, so that's one angle. But Omar, you in particular have been in leadership recruitment and talking to people who are at that executive level in healthcare. But still, I'm just curious also as we get to your perspective on that, because you speak to a lot of people who to the average person would be extraordinarily successful, right? If they're executives in healthcare, whatever else. And maybe there's some interesting stories or perceptions that you're allowed to talk about on this thing, hopefully.
Of course, right? Hopefully.
Before we dive in too deep, we just realized, and it's worth pointing out, I think this is the first ever episode of this podcast that we've done where everybody is from Toronto.
Toronto strong. I said Toronto strong.
Yes, Toronto strong. Exactly. It's the T-Dot episode. Everybody's favorite. Single tier.
It is everyone's favorite. Come on, Rick. This is going to be the best episode. Viewership's just going to jump. There you go.
It's because the Jays are going to win the World Series. That's why we're doing it.
Oh, that's a good prediction.
Yeah. I'm not allowed to be an Expos fan anymore because they don't exist, right? So I have to. It's begrudging, but I still love them. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit to the topic. I think there's a lot of angles to come at this from, but I think it's something that comes up a lot, obviously, for myself and us who work in recruitment in particular. Because when you ask people, what's the ideal next step for you in your career? Obviously, there's some sort of path to something that's success oriented. What are you guys all feeling out there is either for yourself or that you're hearing out there is what people's path to success currently seems to be?
I mean, I have a lot of spinning plates going all the time. So, I mean, I think if I was talking to a recruiter, it'd be very challenging for me to say this is what I think the next step looks like for me. But I try and break the idea of success down into smaller buckets for myself. So when I'm looking at various parts of the business, I kind of have different measures of success for the various areas. So if I'm looking at like my sales or marketing or financially or my own like development and growth, like I try and put different parameters in place for myself. And I also try not to always be looking at like the 3,000 foot view. I try and look at like little wins as I go, because that makes it feel a little bit more achievable. Always kind of having that North Star in mind, but really I think looking at like, did I do what I needed to do today? Yes. Was that getting me closer to where I think I want to be? Hopefully. But you know, as a entrepreneur, there are also a lot of losses that over time, if you look at them as not moving you closer to success, are difficult. So I try and also reframe those when I'm looking at like the day-to-day and those little wins. Even if it is a loss, it's like, oh, I still made some progress in this direction, you know?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, right? So like parsing out to have different areas in your life that you measure your success by, kind of thing. And then also trying to recontextualize your failures as being part of the success journey. That one in particular, I think it's a little common for people who are entrepreneurs because you have to, otherwise you wouldn't even have a business at all.
Yeah.
Get slapped in the face twice in your first month and give up and then go work at McDonald's or whatever if you didn't have that. But that's no shade on people who work at McDonald's. Yeah, I think that's hard though, right? I think that's part of the challenge in the workforce in particular.
I personally don't think you can have success without failure because you have to be willing to try. I think in the end of the day, if you're not willing to try, regardless of the outcome, then you're not going to be able to have success. So I think it's kind of that keeping moving forward. And one thing I wrote down when you were talking, Gareth, is boundaries, you know, having those kind of boundaries on how you define success, how your personal life. And I think it would be harder for you, Gareth, having, you know, being an entrepreneur, kind of having the boundaries between personal and work, because they do tend to blend into each other. So having those kind of personal goals and then business goals and kind of keeping them separate and being able to move the business forward a little bit, but then also working on yourself and what that means. One of the things that I've kind of noticed in the last at least a year is that candidates are really having a hard time with finding new roles. And so I think success could look very different for them. It might not be, okay, I need to find like a remote role or a role with great culture. It may be just to find a role. And maybe that is like the next step versus, you know, it's great to have that North Star, like you were talking about, but where are those increments? Because if only the North Star is successful to you, only when I reach this, that's success, then it's going to be really hard to kind of keep yourself going forward. So having those big goals, but those incremental goals, especially when it comes to a job search or success in a career, you know, I think when you're young, you think, I feel like when I was younger, I felt like, oh, my career is going to be so long. But, you know, it kind of, the time goes by really quickly.
It does.
So if you're not kind of giving yourself these like little macro goals, you know, you can kind of get lost along the way.
Yeah. And maybe I could just branch off of what Lori's saying. I agree with Lori and what Gareth has shared as well. You know, what I'm noticing with candidates quite significantly is I need a job. Mm-hmm. And what I think, you know, what I've realized is that, you know, are you living out someone else's sort of reality of, I want to become a doctor, I want to become this, or success is becoming a millionaire? And what I encourage people that come to coach and sort of work with me is, what is your why? Really, really dive down and understand. It's not just you want to help people. Where, how, what is in your buildup? Because when you start to understand what your why is, small, just what Lori said, you don't have to have big goals, small things every day. For example, my why is to help people. If I've helped one person in any given day, I walk away feeling successful, right? But that's because I understand what my why is. So I think that most, what I'm realizing in the environment is people just want a job. I need a job. I need a job. I need a job. And it's not their fault. I think it's the environment that's leading people down this road. There's less jobs to be had, a lot more competition, which is making it difficult for the world out there, right? So people are losing jobs and need a job. They need to provide food for their family, for lack of a better word, right? So it makes sense. But how do you present yourself if you don't know what you want to do? If you're just going to show up to Lori or to Garris, who's the CEO of Booth, saying, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. Or if you actually understand, like, I'm passionate about animation, or I care about delivering a story that's meaningful and impactful, that gets me up in the morning. Whatever the reason might be, that's more attractive to Garris. And it positions you better and makes you feel a little bit more successful. Anyways, my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'll just jump into that. Sorry, Rick. But Tony Robbins has something called like the tyranny of how, because sometimes when we're like, I need a job, and it's like, how am I going to do it? And okay, how is sending out resumes and doing this and doing that and searching Indeed and going on LinkedIn. But then if you don't have your why, or if you find your why, the how starts to answer itself, and like you were saying, Omar, of, just helping one person a day, or, then you feel successful. So that tyranny of how is always kind of stuck with me, because sometimes we get stuck in that problem solving brain and we're not in our heart-centered, not heart-centered brain, but heart focused on what's our why and how is that going to move us forward through challenges.
Yeah, that can be tough when you're kind of scrambling and you're like, I just need a job.
Yeah.
So I think but I think you still need to be able to reframe that so that you kind of, when you actually go out and try and have those conversations with potential employers, you've got a little bit more meat behind, I just need a job, right? But I think it's okay if it starts there. There's something that I like to kind of put it in the framework of like seasons. So if you're in that moment of like, I just need a job, I think just recognizing that that's where you are, and then working with recruiters or other people to kind of help uncover what that why is, so that when you're actually going to have the conversations, you can reframe it from that feeling or the season that's within you to something that is actually going to create value for the potential employer. And then that ultimately contributes to, if we bring it back to success, that ultimately contributes back to everybody's success, because you're going to show up in a way that's authentic to you, and they're going to see your place within their organization as a result of that. But I think it's okay. As a business owner, I go through seasons of ups and downs and building and kind of rebuilding and things like that. And I think it's okay to recognize that in yourself, and then just work on what am I going to do from here now that I've realized where I am.
All I know is I got to get some of Garris's calmness to rub off. His delivery is just so peaceful and calm. I just want to hang out with Garris. I'm just anyways, sorry.
You're both very different. Omar, you're very enthusiastic, and Garris, you're very calm.
You guys don't know this, but I brought Garris on to do a guided meditation at the end of this.
Yes.
Love it.
I'm going to be working with Headspace soon.
Yeah. This is there you go. Now you're finding another why for yourself.
Yeah.
There you go.
You guys mentioned the why versus the how, like you're saying Lori, what is it again?
The tyranny of how.
There was an interesting book that makes me think of that someone recommended me, like a candidate of mine a long while ago, called Who Not How, about approaching either business ownership or even looking for a job, and they make a lot of arguments. It's a very short book, so it doesn't really, I thought that the idea resonated more with me even than the book, but the whole idea behind it is people always think in that problem solving brain, like, how am I going to do this? And they're thinking like you're in a vacuum. I'm by myself, I'm alone in the world, and it's me versus the world, and how am I possibly going to do this thing? And this just sort of says that that's a fallacy. Like, you do not need to be alone. It's, if you think of it as, who can I collaborate with? And who do I want to collaborate with? It just changes, like you're saying, Gareth, it reframes things a little bit so that you're automatically thinking of connections and not like me versus the world. So who can even just be like, I would like to recruit for nurses, let's say, Omar, you know what I mean? Like, I'd like to work with nurses, and how, like, who do I want to work with? Who do I want to collaborate with? And it's an interesting starting point that can sort of maybe help you even find your why. Maybe the why is harder, right? Sometimes. But I think to just change those questions up for collaboration rather than feeling like you're alone in the world, which you're not. You don't have to.
And I do think that the job search can be very lonely. You're sitting there, I'm sure, just day in and day out, and you're kind of on your own. And I think from like a candidate's perspective, if you could just take some time, because I think that the rush is to kind of solve the problem and fix the hole, and but be maybe a little bit introspective. Okay, who do I know that maybe can help me? Maybe you already know a recruiter. Maybe you already know somebody within your network that works at either an agency or works for a big company. And a lot of times, and actually one of the sales trainings I was taking was, people like to help people. People, hey Rick, can you help me with this? Most likely you're going to say yes, or, hey, I can't, but Gareth can, or, that people tend to want to help. So I think instead of just sitting and being like, oh, I need to fix this problem right now, or like, and then we all have these doomsday scenarios that we run. I'd say probably like a program. If this doesn't happen, then this and this and this, and kind of center yourself, calm yourself. Okay, who's around me? Why do I want a job in this field? And getting to, maybe because I have a family at home, because I enjoy working with people. And it doesn't have to be these big why, like, universal kind of question. It could be very simple of, like, I have a family, I have kids, I have a home, I need to, very simple, but you're kind of reframing it and being maybe approaching the problem with a little bit more strategy or a little bit more thought versus just charging forward and trying to fix the problem.
That's a really good point, Lori. When I work with students, that's the first thing. When they line up to ask me questions, the first thing they ask me is, how do I come up with my why? And I love what you said. It doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing, right? It could be smaller. It could be bite-sized. It's what you want to do, what excites you, what do you want to see the change in the world? And I love what you said in terms of perspective. Even if it's simple, word it differently, right? Like, you can say things in a different perspective to land in a different manner. I'm talking to Gareth today, but if I'm talking to someone that's maybe a 10-year-old in high school, I'm not going to have the same conversation that I can have with Gareth as a 10-year-old. That perspective, like, I can sit to Gareth and explain my why thoughtfully, strategically, meaningfully. A 10-year-old is not going to get it. And even if they get it, they're not going to care, right? So the perspective, I love that perspective portion that you mentioned. It's really important to mention.
Yeah. I would say actually sometimes the younger people can be more insightful sometimes because they don't have this pressure that we have, and they can just kind of come from their heart and be like, give you this, and you're like, oh yeah, like I didn't think of it this way, So sometimes actually talking to children can be very inspiring, I find.
Yeah, you raise an interesting point, Lori. There's a phrase I was using a little while, and I haven't brought it up on this show for a while, but that I feel like at some point from being an adult and working in jobs and having maybe disappointments or whatever, or other people's opinions, I feel like we almost, as adults, get into idea jail, where we're stuck in this idea jail of our own creation, and we just don't think that other things are available or options are available to us, right? And I feel like it's important, and now more than ever, I feel like that's reinforced by being on social media and seeing a lot of kind of being bombarded a little bit by hateful stuff or scary things on the news, or like, oh, the economy is tanking in this place, that place, whatever. You know what I mean? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of like people vying for your attention. I feel like it makes the idea jail kind of smaller, right? Like the whole world we live in becomes smaller and louder and more difficult to escape. I almost feel like it's important as adults at some point to realize that that's happening and to sort of try to bust out of idea jail, see what options are available for real out there.
Yeah. I mean, asking those questions, like what is success actually, I think does that for you. Cause you kind of, if you can take a moment to like sit down and actually think about that for yourself, or what do I want to do this year? Or, you know, like I try and do like learn one big new thing every year.
Mm.
And that's just like a goal for myself. So I just set that out. Sometimes I achieve it and sometimes I don't. But when you look back over 10 years and you go, most years I did learn something big, some big new thing. That's actually like really satisfying. It gives you kind of that impetus to do that more going forward, right? But I think that's not necessarily related to career goals, but just like trying to be outside of what's happening in the world and just go like, what's the thing that I'm really interested in right now? You know, and what am I going to try and learn? Like this year for me, I want to learn chess, right? And become good at chess. And it's weird because it has all these spin-off benefits when you start actually doing that. You start having different conversations with different people who are like, oh, you're actually doing that too. That's cool. And, you know, it creates these like other connections in your brain that if you're consciously doing it, it kind of feeds, if you frame it as like success, it starts to reframe what those look like on different levels. But I think that's it's kind of a neat way to go about it and get out of what's happening in the world and just kind of focus on yourself for a minute and what you want to achieve.
That's important too, and I think that it's important to realize, even as recruiters, we see all the time that people are like, we can see as recruiters, because we speak to so many different people, you know, it would be really great at X, actually, I think, and they're like, oh no, that's not me. Like they've never tried it, they don't want to explore it, they don't want to ask questions. They're like, no, that's not me. I don't want to try that. I don't want to do that. It's almost like they're afraid to have the conversation. They're like, do not talk to me about an opportunity you think I would be good at, but I definitely need a job also. There's a lot of mixed signals, and it's fear. I don't blame anybody, because again, they're scared, right? And they're also scared of failure. They're scared that if they try something new that's outside of their comfort zone, that they will fail. And again, like you said earlier, Lori, I think you need that. Then you don't try things, right? And you need to be okay with failure sometimes. Obviously, not when your whole livelihood's on the line. But yeah, how do you guys notice that same kind of thing, that people are quick to not want to learn something new or do something new necessarily, and stay inside that box?
Yeah, I think it has to do with your identity, and sometimes our identity is what we frame for ourselves. It's through lived experiences, and sometimes it's being told by certain people. I do think identity, obviously, it forms at a young age, but it comes from parents and teachers. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, like something a teacher said to me when I was in grade 5 has stuck with me. And that could be a good thing or not a good thing. Like, oh, you're not that smart. So then, you know, at that very young, tender age, now they think that they're not that way, or they're not smart. So they tend to grow and think of themselves in this box. And it can be very hard to push yourself out of that box, of that identity that you formed for yourself, because now you're looking through a lens of saying, oh, I'm not smart, or I can't do that. So then you're just reaffirming it with the experiences that you've lived. And so, oh, I'm not smart. I tried this. I failed. Oh, I must be right. You know, I must be right. So it is about kind of reframing and knowing that your identity is flexible. It can change. It can shift. It's not static. And I was kind of thinking about what you were saying, Gareth, about goals for yourself. I think it's important to have goals. It could be one specific thing. I tend to break my goals down at the new year of like, what do I want to focus on when it comes to my career, my relationships, personal, and it gives you kind of that framework of moving forward. And, you know, I would say my summer has been a little bit of a stressful summer. I haven't had the best summer, but sometimes what I think about is, I think Lori from 5 years ago would be very proud of where I am right now. Even though I'm struggling, even though it's been hard, even though things haven't gone exactly the way I'd like to, I know I'm further ahead than I was 5 years ago. It can be very hard to be kind of outside of yourself a little bit and have that perspective of, okay, I'm not exactly where I want to be. but I know I've worked really hard to get where I am, and past versions of me would be happy, would be proud.
Progress
So
instead of
put your
perfection.
identity envelope.
Yeah, I think that's super important, right? Like that perspective, I think, is so easy to not look back and say like, hey, this is where I was 5 years ago, and that person would actually be super impressed with even the problems that I'm dealing with right now.
Mhm.
The fact that I'm even at this point that these are my problems right now, these are
Yeah,
pretty high quality
it's
problems
true.
compared to what I was before, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I would say is that what I find with candidates is they're really hard on themselves as well, right?
Yeah,
Like I think your question was, are you finding people they are inside their box? But I think I'm fortunate enough that people come to me for coaching, so they're willing to
Mhm.
learn and accept, right? So I feel like I get lucky, and a lot of the people that work with me are excited and they're open, and they come to me because it helps that conversation helps them expand their brain and think in different ways. So I mean, I feel like people are in a box, but I feel like when they seek the right help and engage the right folks and then have meaningful, thoughtful conversations come prepared to them, it helps them think in different ways. I don't know if that sort of, and I feel like I'm lucky because I only get people that reach out to me for coaching, so they're hoping to learn. And that one person that doesn't want to learn, and like, okay, that's cool, that's fair. Like I've had conversations where my interview skills are awesome, my resume is awesome. I don't need, like, well, if you don't need help in your resume, you don't need help in interview skills, you would have had a job today. If you don't, I mean, but sure, if you're telling me they're all good, I'm all for it. Your resume is awesome. Your interview skills are above average, right? And that's the candidate that doesn't walk away with any value, right? They come in, they show up, they already think they're perfect. They don't expand their brain in any other way. They're where they are, and then they continue their recruitment process and with no difference, right, in results. So I encourage the brain thinking.
yeah. Omar, I'm so glad that you're the one who said that. You're so
What?
outgoing, and you're kind of like, well, if your interview is if your resume is so great, you'd have a job right now. It's like, oh snap, Omar, dude, super positive, man. But it's true. In a way, it's true.
It's true, right? Like, and that's what I like. I'm hungry to learn. I learn every day. Like I met Garris today. I met Lori today. I've known you, Rick, but how cool! I learned about Garris and what he does. I learned something new, and I had nobody in my network doing what Garris is doing, right? So, you have to, and that's something that's a little bit of a different type of a learning, but you have to be able to consider yourself and learn. Every day is an opportunity to learn something new, right? And you have to be open to that. Anyways, that's the way I think, at least.
And I would just even kind of put it out there, but being invited to go onto a podcast, I'd never done that before. I got, invited through a colleague that works with Rick, and I was kind of like, oh, that's a little outside my comfort zone. I've never done that. But hey, sure, like, let's try it. Let's see how it goes. Like, like, it's pushing myself. It's pushing what I would say it was out of my comfort zone and not used to, or I've never done it before. So for me, it was, let's try, let's see. It could be great. If it doesn't go great, then hopefully not too many people who are watching that episode. But obviously it did work out, and I'm back. So, and now it's kind of given me a tool in my tool belt, and I get to meet new people that I've never got to meet before, and engage in like conversations that stir my mind, and being open to other people's perspective as well. Like, obviously what you do, Omar, is a little bit different than what I do, and Garris as well. What you do is different than what I do. So your perspective on a candidate experience or what success and wellness is to you from that perspective would be different than mine. And I think it's great to have those experiences. And Omar, what you were saying a little bit of like, you're lucky you have all these people coming to you. But I think almost what you had told me, your first why is, I want to help somebody every day. So your why is to help people, and people are coming to you because they want help. So it comes back to you. That's where your why kind of fits in.
And you have to be honest and actually put in that passion and work, Lori. That's what I also realized. Like, I actually do try my best. Like, I work on Saturdays, I work after hours to accommodate and help people as much as I can, right? And that's where the magic happens. You can't just say, I want to help people, or I want to create great animation, and just sit there and hope that it happens. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I think there has to be a mirror of effort and want. They have to come together, is what I think as well. It requires work. It's not easy. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But you were right.
What's that?
I think she is right. I love what Lori is adding here. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and Lori, you mentioned before about the problems, dealing with problems. That makes me think of I'm in the middle of this book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Do you guys know this book?
I've not heard that. Yeah.
It's a book by Ben Horowitz, who was a CEO of a bunch of like early tech companies, and sort of explaining how he went from, you know, just being a regular sort of worker to being a CEO of like startups, and then having these publicly traded companies that were sold for like billions of dollars. And he briefly gives a synopsis of what all that was like, and then he unpacks all the things he learned afterwards. So I just finished the synopsis of what it was like, and basically it's just like he goes from having all these problems at work to deal with as like a, you know, account manager, and then managing people, and then they're bigger problems, and then they're just bigger, more stressful problems, right, all the way up to being a CEO. And then the big thing at the end is he just sells the thing that he worked and stressed and toiled and whatever after, and then freaked out about having sold it, and was puking every day and crying and being like, what have I done? And then of course after all that realized, okay, I think I did a good job. And so it's like, this is a guy who is perceived as being unbelievably successful throughout his trajectory, beating all the odds to sell a company from nothing, to survive through a really difficult market, go publicly traded, and sell it to HP for like $1.88 billion or whatever.
Wow.
And the whole time he was just kind of like, I don't friggin' know, how the hell do I solve this next incredibly difficult problem? And it was just more people, more money, more pressure. And so it's not to say that he was miserable the whole time, but that was the major difference from what he was doing before, was the scope and whatever of the kind of problem solving. So it's harder problems to solve is what you need to do at every next level. Which again is, I think, something that people don't think of when they talk to recruiters like us, and they just want that next level. They think in their minds, I want the next level, I deserve it, I worked really hard, I needed life to be easier for me, and that's why I need this next step. But it's hard to sort of break their hearts and say, FYI, this next step has a lot of different issues and problems, you know what I mean, with it, right? It's not a question of suddenly everything is easy for you, sadly.
I mean, that's the dirty secret, right? As you get older, it doesn't necessarily get easier; it just gets different. And yes. I think if you can like become comfortable with the idea that you're never going to reach this ultimate state of success, you're always going to be moving the goalpost, intentionally or unintentionally. Either it's going to be someone else moving it for you, or you moving it yourself. It's like you're not a static being that like, once you reach a certain place, everything's solved. It's like you're moving through the world with everybody else. People who are ahead of you don't necessarily have it all figured out, but you're trying to do the best you can in that moment, and, you know, reach that point that Omar is at, or Lori, even, like, you guys are talking about setting these goals and being like reflective on those goals afterwards, and kind of understanding where you are now and then where you want to be. And I think that fluidity in the way you look at what success is really important, because when you're in that moment where you put all this pressure on one point in time, it can feel like the weight of the world's on you, and you have to make this totally right decision right now to achieve this thing that you want within the next few months or something. But like when you step back and look at those seasons of your career or the seasons of your life, it's like you're going to change as a person, and your goals are going to change. And I think it's, if you can get to a place where you're like feeling kind of calm about that, you know, where like it's okay if like right now I'm just starting out at something, but eventually I will be experienced in that, and then my goals will be different at that point. You know, like Omar's at a place where he's obviously got a perfect fit with the type of people that are coming to him, but I'm sure that didn't happen, you know, on day one. It was like building, and, you know, like a good personality fit there for the career, and like all these other things that laddered up to make that success happen. And I'm sure he's got some goals now that are aspirational, right? So it's never a static thing.
I think the only constant is change. That's the only thing we can really count on, is that our life is going to change. And I think, you know, I like, Gareth, how you keep talking about the seasons, but yeah, we live, especially in Canada and in Toronto, we know we have 4 solid seasons, and, you know, we're coming out of the summer where it was really hot, and we know undoubtedly we're heading into the darker season where it's going to get colder, and even how we as, you know, Canadians, I would say, adapt. We know, like, I'm not the same person in the summer as I am in the winter, because I'm staying home more, there's less to do, it gets darker, so we adapt to those seasons. And I think as humans, we also need to adapt to the seasons of our lives. So, if you are in more of a winter season, you may have to be more in kind of like a hermit mode where you're a little bit more introspective and reflective. And then that prepares you for the spring and then the summer, or when the times get a little bit easier. So I would say, you're always going to have those ups and downs. And I also like, Rick, what you were saying about this gentleman, Ben Horowitz. It's like he didn't get from where he started to CEO without dealing with those problems and those stresses along the way. And then there was a next level and a next level and a next level. And I guess you never stop leveling up. I mean, that's really what success is. I mean, you just keep finding a way to move forward, to level up. And it could be again, it doesn't have to be these big, huge things. It can be these small little successes. And learning chess. Right now you might be in that stage where it feels very frustrating, but hey, in 6 months or a year or 10 years, the success will look very different at your chess. Right now might be just to win a game. I don't know where you're at. I don't know where you're at. I don't play chess for 10 years. Hey, I want to beat this.
I love your goals, Gareth.
I don't know what your goal is when it comes to chess, but I'm just saying, if you still play chess in 10 years, what you want from yourself in that game is going to be a lot different than it is right now.
Laurie Garris is going to be world champion, and he's going to take us all on a cruise together. That's what we're aiming for. 10 years down the road, that's the goal. Garris is going to be like, I remember that meeting 10 years ago. I made it. Now let's go on a cruise. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I'll pull this back up again.
Yeah. And you'll remember when we decided you were going to be the next Queen's Gambit chess genius, Bobby Fischer style. No, but it's true, though. I think that's an interesting goal to actually talk about because, like you said, Garris, it also changes who you are a little bit. It gets you into different conversations with people, so it changes who you meet and talk to, but it also changes who you are. I think it's important to remember that too, that it's like if we put ourselves into situations where we are doing new things, we change as people. So we change, our goals change. Getting some sort of plan that we decide when you're like 20 years old and then trying to stick to it and then being like, well, I didn't become the king of France or some impossible thing that doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like when you were young, that you're not successful, right? But it is also, I've certainly held on to the dream forever that I was going to make a lot of money in the music business. You know what I mean? Like I had a record label, I was touring around, I did a lot of great things. And I got to meet a lot of my heroes and stuff like that and play music with celebrities and all this kind of stuff. Did I make a lot of money? No. So like, is it successful or not? It really depends on how you look at it, right? But so there's also a lens where it's where it really brings up. It's subjective to an extent. I can look back on it and decide to say, yeah, I was super successful. I got to write songs with my friends and play on big stages and sell records and do all this stuff. Or I could look back and say, you know what, we tried, but we failed. We just never really made it. We never made it sustainable. It's completely up to me. Flip the coin, And I used to think of it as a failure for many years. And as I got older, I decided it was a success. Maybe that's just a cheesy thing you do when you get older.
I would imagine you probably collected some transferable skills, right? So
yes,
at the end of the day, like the success maybe isn't in that high level view of it, but in these things that you collected along the way that contributed to something else that you're doing.
100%, right? These things change us as people when you take risks and you do different things. So it isn't this sort of static thing where it's not a binary success failure. You know what I mean?
And what? Sorry. Did you want to chime in, Laura?
No. Yeah, go ahead, Omar.
And I was just gonna say, you know what? I absolutely love what you shared, Rick. And it is about perspective. When I was a little bit younger, I just looked at everything as negative, just negative. I hate life. I hate this. I hate this.
Wow.
And I have a lot of trouble believing that, Omar. But
yeah.
Well, trust. But then I love what you just said. I'm like, listen, there's people that are suffering more than me. I have food. Sure. I have a car. What am I complaining about? I can speak English. I can collaborate with people. I'm actually pretty happy. So, and look at me now. Look at what you're saying. You can't even believe that I was a negative person, right? And just to your point, I just got up and said, no. I can either look at that back and say, hey, I was a failure, or say, hey, I got up, I got to meet some good people, I got to sing a couple of songs, I got to good, and then that perspective is what matters. You got to look at things in a positive way. Sorry, Lori, go ahead. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to say a little bit. I think what we tend to do is benchmark ourselves against other people, and we look at these 1%ers as these successful people. This Ben Horowitz, which great, like he was very successful, or like a Tony Robbins, or, these people that have these a Justin Bieber, for example, or any professional player, how few people make it to that upper echelons of massive success. So we're benchmarking ourselves against massive success. If I don't sell 1 million records, I'm not successful. Or if I don't have a $1 million home by 30, I'm a failure. And I think social media does have a play in that a little bit of, we are inundated with these people who are showcasing what they've been able to do. And I think if you're not so strong in yourself, you can look at that and be like, well, look at what they accomplish. And here I am.
And you don't see the hard
work.
What
I'm doing. Yeah.
Lori, you don't see the hard work. That's what annoys me is with Instagram and Facebook. I was watching a video of Elon Musk yesterday, and everyone's like, oh, Elon Musk's so rich, so rich. And this guy was talking about how he spent 22 hours in his factory floor when his business was failing. And he actually went out on this interview to say, nobody should work this hard, right? Mm-hmm. We don't talk about that. We only talk about Elon Musk, and we benchmark ourselves against Elon Musk is so rich. You don't realize how much hard work, effort, timeless and sleepless nights, what he had to do to get to where he wanted to get to, right? So anyways, I feel like that's a big miss.
Yeah. And in the end of the day, his level of intelligence or brilliance, maybe not all of us are gifted with that, and that's, in the end of the day, there's work ethic, there's what you're naturally given, there's somewhat of your environment. Like you were saying, Omar, like we're lucky, we live in Canada, we have freedoms, we have the opportunity, like there are people in the world that don't have those basic things that we have. So, we do need a little bit of gratefulness for where we're at. We do need a little bit of thankfulness, but happiness as well, right? We have to find the joy even in the struggle, because I'm here and I'm able to struggle. I might be hard right now, and I know it sounds really hard to say what's the joy in struggling. Well, you're knowing your limits, you're knowing your boundaries, you're pushing through adversity. Everybody I've ever spoken to ever has gone through adversity. Everybody, and it's just at different times in their lives. Right now, maybe things are going great for you, Omar, and maybe not so good for myself or for Rick. Like, we don't know which season we're in. And a lot of times we put on the facade on social media that everything's great and everything is good. And we don't see behind the mask how somebody might be struggling. So
it's true. There's that pressure to always project success online. Just for those who are listening and not watching this, if you're listening to this on Spotify after the fact, we need some described video, which is that Omar was making the heart hand signal that whole time. Making a heart hand signal during words. Now people can get the full effect when they listen.
You're too kind. Thanks.
This is a good segue to what I was going to bring up at the beginning when we were in the green room earlier, which is Superman. I wanted to bring up Superman because the new Superman movie, which I thought was pretty good when I watched it first. I was a film student, right? So I listened to these podcasts also about film theory and film deconstruction. People take a psychoanalytic angle to a movie, even a regular pop culture movie, right? Or a philosophical one, or whatever. And it kind of pointed out some stuff that was maybe a little deeper, whether intentional or not, in the Superman movie that I didn't see. So I rewatched it this morning. And, it's funny. Here's Superman. You figure he's the strongest guy, he's the fastest and whatever. He's Superman, right? But he still has to deal with all these problems in the film. It starts right away. Problems with his relationship with Lois Lane. Why? They have to keep their relationship a secret. It causes tension. It causes problems. Even at the level of Superman, he has that difficulty, right? The public, some of them like him, some of them hate him, some of them think he abuses his power or whatever else. So all these relational problems that he gets into, even as Superman, you can be Superman and still not solve everything, is I guess the idea, right? The level of success that we go after currently is a lot more like the bad guy in Superman, which is Lex Luthor. He's a technocrat. He uses all kinds of bots to spy on people, including Superman, right, to get all this information and algorithmically decide how to destroy him. That's kind of what we idolize. That's your not that I'm saying Elon Musk is a villain, but the technocrats are what we idolize, right? But on the other hand, no matter how rich you are, it's your relationships that are going to make you happy, right? If your personal relationships are failing, you could have all the money and the success and all the technology in the world. You're still not going to be happy. You might have all the proof on social media that you're successful, like you're saying, Lori, and have that image. But in your relational experience in life, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to look back and say like, well, my marriage was a shambles, but at least I had all that cash in the bank.
How many impressions did I get on that last post?
Yeah, exactly. I got so many likes. Like my kids hate me, but I have so many likes. You know what I mean? Like it's funny that we've kind of lost that humanist angle of things, which I thought was well shown. And you can even be Superman and still you have to deal with the same kinds of human problems, right? So this idea of this measure of success is a bit of a farce. At the end of the day, human beings want acceptance and love. And, we all kind of want the same things. We want to have community. We want, we want to feel like we're part of something, like we have impact, like we have meaning, sense of purpose, and a why. And I feel like maybe if we can sort of be more like Superman emotionally and sort of go down that path of humanism instead of being so obsessed with what social media tells us to be obsessed with, that might help us, I think, in the long run, get down to the feeling of success, regardless of our bank accounts and so on.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole purpose of this conversation is redefining success. What is success? And success can be multiple things. It can be financial success. It can be emotional success or relationship success. And if you put everything into one bucket, okay, I'm not going to be successful until I have a certain number of wealth, I think you are losing sight of what we're here on earth kind of to do, which is to build meaning relationships, leave a legacy. They say, I think it's only like 3 or 4 generations before people don't know your name anymore, which is crazy. So it's like, you're making an impact on the people that are around you immediately. And yeah, maybe some people will have more lasting legacies depending on how famous you are. But for the average people, our immediate impact are those relationships, our children, our partners, our siblings. And then, I kind of think about that sometimes, like, who do I want people to remember me as? What type of person do I want people to remember me? And I don't think about this all the time, but that is a framework of, who, like that identity of who am I? What's my purpose? And, am I happy in the end of the day? That kind of check in every once in a while. Am I happy? Despite, maybe struggling or despite maybe not, meeting all my goals or being super successful in some areas, but, am I happy with the hard work I've done? Am I happy with showing up every single day? And like, I think you said something, Omar, about, you got to put the work in too, so it's a measure of a little bit of, doing the hard work, but also being passionate.
Yeah.
And then that creates that success and that happiness in any area of your life, not just work. If you're not putting your work into your relationships, there's a good chance they're not going to survive. So, work and passion in all areas of your life. And sometimes you might have 100, you can give, 100% at work, and maybe some areas are struggling a little bit, but you kind of have to balance it out because, different seasons, like Gareth said.
And sorry, Gareth, do you want to?
I love that my season analogy is catching on. It's great.
Yeah.
We're going to use it. And what I would just, sorry, go ahead.
That's all. Go.
Oh, no, I was just going to add and just say that tie your success to things that you can control. Like Lori was saying, like, Instagram likes or reels or watches or comments. Those are not things that you can technically control. It's up to the world to come in. It's up to Rick to like this video. It's up to Gareth to go and share this with his network, right? Those are not things that I can control. If I tie my success and my feeling of excitement and my feeling of happiness to likes and to comments, those things are not in my control. So the only thing that I would say is, the topic of this is that make sure you're tying your success to things that you physically and mentally have the ability to control, either through hard work, through passion, through motivation, through learning. So I'm not saying you have to have all the knowledge right now to say, oh, that's what no, but do you have sightlines to get the knowledge? Like if I'm passionate about animation, now I know Garrus. I have the ability to actually go and learn that skill and become successful in that if that's what's going to make me happy. Anyways, just wanted to share that as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, you raise a good point too of measuring success in controllables, but also in things that make you more like that improve you or change you or whatever, right? So like as a person, those are intangibles, but I think a lot of times people think of themselves, I think you mentioned this too before, Lori, like they think of themselves as being the same, and you too, Garrus, actually, you know, like this is who I am right now, and I just picture myself as being more wealthy or having a more title, but being the same person, right? But it's like personal growth is kind of more important in a way than career growth, right? Like, and the two often go together.
I
Like
was
a
gonna say
good
they
way,
go together.
right? Like a good way to sort of help along with your career growth or other kinds of growth would be to sort of work on your personal growth to an extent. And you'll think different things, you'll meet different people, you'll move through the world differently, and then opportunities will perhaps present themselves when you're that different person.
I think that was even what Omar was saying. He used to be negative, and then he started to focus on the positive and wanting to help people, and then people started coming to him, and like so, it does have a little bit of a snowball effect. So, yeah, I would agree with that, Rick.
I obviously also agree with that. Rick, I have to say, I love your background. I just never thought of this. I have a TV in my office as well, but I love how you've. I honestly, I've been looking at you, but I've been looking at your background more like, what's going to happen here now? Is it going to be fishes? Is it going to be sand?
Is it lovebirds? Is it like a little droplet that's giant on a leaf behind me? No, I know. It's thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. And for those of you who are just listening and not seeing it, he's talking about the changing screen in the back of my background. Yeah, look, I mean, I think that I think that this is a lot of great points, and it's not by accident that I asked you guys all to be on this topic, because I think you all have great things to say about it. And I hope that, because, you know, certainly when we do speak to candidates now, especially, I mean, just last week, even I had someone on who was a really frustrated candidate who had 20 plus years experience in PR and was seeing that now is on the job market again for the first time in a long time, and seeing like just being really shocked at how messy it is, and people not getting back to her, or ghosting recruiters, you know, booking a thing and then ghosting her, or whatever, internal recruiters, right? My solution to the whole thing is it's a good time to get a good relationship with one or two agency recruiters who will actually champion you and try to, you know, and will listen to you and see you and like you for who you are, you know. But clearly there's a lot of sentiment you see on LinkedIn and stuff too, with people who are negative, who are sort of giving up hope and faith in the job market in general. So I think, you know, I also don't want this to come across as it's like, don't worry about it, just be happy with what you are and quit complaining, you jerks. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sensitive to the fact that it is extraordinarily difficult out there right now. But hard as it is, I think that some of it does come down to opening yourself up and, you know, trying to vie for your personal growth as well, if at all possible, in the search.
Yeah, and I would say, like, a little bit, Rick, it's also like those relationships, you know, like in the end of the day, what I've noticed in recruitment is it's very cyclical, the market, in that, hey, you're my client, and then all of a sudden you become a candidate, or you become a client, or you're a candidate and then you become a client. So I think building those relationships along the way through your career, however long your career is. So somebody who's 20 years in the business, okay, well, who have you worked with in the past that maybe you can reach out to? So never discount the ability to make relationships internally within your own organization, externally. People move on, like I'm sure you know, Rick, you know, people shift jobs. Like some people stay 20 years, but for the most part, people don't. After a few years, they move on, and maybe they move up. Maybe your coworker from 10 years ago now is a hiring manager at a different organization. So, you know, obviously, if you're in a search right now, you can't work on those internal relationships. But that would be kind of my first outreach, would be who in my network do I know that maybe is working at a job that I would like, or that they could introduce me? And then people who aren't necessarily searching but think that they may, don't discount relationships and building relationships with the people. And I do think, and I've worked with a lot of different people, and everyone's a little bit different. There are some that just tend to stay a little bit in their bubble, do their job, and go home. And then there's people who tend to be a little bit more social. Doesn't mean you have to go to every social event, but yeah, it doesn't hurt to try to integrate as much as you can into social activities, even if it's a chat, a water cooler chat, or something like that. Because especially if you're younger in your career, you'll notice those people, like some of them will move on, they'll move up, and hey, you might work together eventually. So building relationships, I think, for purpose, meaning, success, but also in your career is something that we should never discount, because you never know where you're going to end up.
Meaningfully networking, Lori. That's what I call it. You have to meaningfully network. That's what you have to do. Thoughtfully and meaningfully network. And Rick, you know, what the only last, well, not last, I don't know how long you have us for, but the thing I wanted to add was
they know it's only 4 hours long.
You know, I'm really mindful that we've been very positive and energetic. Rick's point is really valid. It is really hard out there. It is tough. So we're trying to present in a friendly light so that people feel a little bit more energetic. But what I want to do as a favor is, if you're listening in or you're tuned into LinkedIn, I don't really care where you are, but because it's hard out there, if you reach out to me over LinkedIn and drop Rick's full name, Rick Cucuvio, I don't know if I said that right. I might have messed that up.
That's okay.
But I'm more than happy to provide you guys support. You know, just happy to review your resume or guide you or open up some doors, just as a favor to the people that are. It is hard out there, so try to help people out. Wanted to share that. Fair.
That's very nice of you, Omar. That's extremely nice of you. Yeah, and you know what? I think that here's a question for you. In fact, Omar, you're talking to leaders in general. You're talking to people who I think others who are in the job market would see as super successful, right? Like, you know, in executive leadership and so on. What's that vibe like right now? They're coming to you for coaching, or do these people come off as feeling successful? What are the things they're asking for in coaching? Like, where are the gaps there?
No, you know what? It's. Oops. Can you hear me or no? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, no. You know, Rick, it's a lovely question, and what I think people forget to realize is that everyone's a human being. I woke up today hitting the snooze alarm, just like probably Lori and Garris and yourself did. I didn't want to go to work today. If I could have it my way, I'd be in bed right now watching TV and being served breakfast, right? So, I just feel like it's lost that people think that everyone is the same. I think there's this buildup of people thinking that, oh, this person is so successful, though he's someone. No, he's just a human being. It's just like you, just like me, right? So I feel like, to answer your question, everyone is struggling in the same types of things that you're struggling in. You know, how do we present ourselves? How do we update our resume? How do we meaningfully network? You know, even executives, when they reach out, they might reach out to guys and say, I need a job or I need this, but that's not meaningfully networking. How do you show up thoughtfully? How do you draft I love what Lori was saying about networking. I network like as much as I possibly can. I'm always at an event. I'm always trying to meet new people, right? But how do you do it thoughtfully? Not just show up and say, hi, nice to meet you. So, I mean, to answer your question, what I think is executives are struggling with the same things that most people that you would imagine you or me are struggling with. They come for the advice in the same. How do I network? How do I interview? Can you help me update my resume? I'm a certified Gallup strengths coach, so I try to bring in some of the Gallup because it's a really positive premise. And there's a lot of assessment tools out there. Everyone is great, but Gallup's premise is being positive. It just says that everyone has 34 skills that are outstanding, right? So I try to coach them in the same manner that I would do anybody else. I don't know if that answers your question, Rick.
It does.
It does.
And
I'll just add one quick thing onto that. And I think sometimes with people that are executives or people that have been very tenured, they actually might have a little bit less skill set on the current market because they haven't been out of work for 20 years or, you know, so sometimes people who are a little bit more fresh to the market may actually have some more insight and more knowledge in their tool belt than somebody who has an executive that's been very tenured at an organization. So they may need more up-to-date tools.
And it's us, Rick. Look at how you presented these executives, and it's us humans that put these. They're just humans. They have the same problems that we do. They wake up just like we do. They eat food just like they have a different skill set, different experiences that put them where they are. But that doesn't change their problems, their needs. You know, if there's a leak in their house, It's gonna leak just like it leaks at Lori's house, just like it leaks at Garris's house, right? And I
They're
think
still going to have just as much trouble finding a plumber in Toronto.
yeah, and it's gonna be just as expensive,
No
right?
plumber. Yeah.
But I just wanted to, humanize that. I think that's the best way to look at it, is that we're all equal. We just got to figure out our way forward, right? I love your background. What's happening there? Anyway, sorry. I have ADD. I'm pretty sure.
No, it's good. Just distract.
I had a question for you guys, actually, because I get a number. I'm glad you brought it up. I get a number of requests that are just like, "Do you have a job for me?" And like that, immediately, it just kind of is tough for me to do anything with. And I'm just curious, when you guys are talking about the networking and the connecting, do you have any advice for any of the people that are reaching out, say cold with a DM? Is that a good idea? Like, are there other kind of approaches that you guys would recommend they take?
I would say what I prefer, or when I have people reach out to me, if they've done a little bit of research on me, like if they've been like, hey, I see you just started, or you've got a promotion, or I liked your last post, or so some sort of knowledge with me. The types of reach outs that I find very difficult are the ones that are, like you said, a little bit cold, which I think cold outreach is okay. I'm in sales, that's fine. But sometimes it can be a little aggressive and demanding and, insistent. And so it's very difficult to help somebody who's maybe not respecting some boundaries versus somebody who's, polite. And I always try to help anybody I can. If anybody reaches out to me, and I know, because I'm in staffing, I'm always on the pulse of who's hiring and what's going on. So even if it's something I can't help them with, I will do my best to try to connect people together. And something like Omar said, I do think, when you work in staffing or recruitment or anything like that, the ability to help, really rings true. So respectful messages that make sense. I will do what I can if it's possible.
And Garris, I think your question was, how do people reach out, right? Just to look for a job if they're looking for a job. Is that what the question was?
Oh, just some advice for them, because like I get a lot of messages almost daily that are just like, can you hire me for this, or do you have a job opening in that? And it's I don't 100% know what they should do, but I feel that it doesn't serve them well to just kind of ask for things like in that manner.
Well, think about it. Lori's advice is on point, but think about it. Anybody that's listening in, I want lunch today. I'm hungry. Does anybody want to drive to Burlington, where I live, and drop off lunch for me? Right? It's the same concept. Think about what I'm saying. You're reaching out to Garris, you're reaching out to Lori, you're reaching out to Rick and saying, hi, give me a job. Help me find a job. If you're not going to come to Burlington and drop off food for me because I'm hungry, I'm just asking for it, reached out to you, why do you think Garris is going to do that? So I love what Lori's pointers are. I would take it even a bit further. Look at what I've been posting. Look at who I've been talking to. Look at what's of interest to me. Look at my strat plan. Look at where my organization is headed. Understand what I might be looking for in the market, and then come to me and email me. Don't say I need a job. Omar, I hated your comment on Lori's post. Lori was saying was absolutely correct. What you're saying is absolutely incorrect. I welcome that.
Yeah.
Now we can have a meaningful back and forth, right? It's the hardest to talk to someone that emails you and says, can you give me a job? Can you give me a job? It's easier to talk to someone that comes to the table, develops what Lori was saying, develops a little bit of a relationship. If I develop a little bit of a relationship with Rick, he might actually drop off food for me today. Now think about that exact scenario, right? I'm like, Rick, drop off food. He says no. I go back to Rick and I say, hey, we have a relationship. Drop off food. He's like, okay, I can think about it.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Same thing that I would encourage folks to think about. Reach out thoughtfully, meaningfully. I really use the term meaningfully network. To grow in the networking field, you have to thoughtfully and meaningfully do what you're doing. If you won't do anything for free for anybody else, remember, everyone has their own problems in their own business as well. But approach them thoughtfully and meaningfully, and I guarantee they'll respond. Does that answer the question a bit?
Oh, yeah. I was asking just to help anybody that was listening maybe reframe that idea of meaningfully reaching out. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a good point as well, Garris. Sorry, Lori, what was that?
No, go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's something that I end up coaching people in staffing with very directly. So like people who are internal TAs, a lot of them have been let go, right? And so they're trying to apply for jobs and that they're not getting the same salary offers that they used to have. And so they've just been like, what do you suggest that I do when I reach out to these people? And it's like, well, if they let go of all their TAs, they're going to agencies. Why are they going to agencies? For hard to find candidates. You've been in it for 20 years. What kind of candidates do you know? Do you have a network of a certain kind of candidate? Well, then you go back to them and you say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. hiring manager or what have you, I have this network of 20 years of these kinds of candidates. I'd love to talk about, that are relevant. So you bring something to the table, right? Like it very specifically, just to give an exact example. And you're probably going to get their attention and at least get into a conversation. And maybe you might not get a job out of it, but at least now you have a network of some people go like, this guy's got a great network of whatever, and they may think of you in the future, right? So just like concretely,
And I would say too, if you're like, okay, Garris, do you have a job for me? Like, look at your careers page, look if there's any openings, like, because Garris isn't going to make a job just because you reached out. Like, so do a little bit of research. Hey, Garris, I noticed that you have an account manager open and I have 5 years experience and, and look at the job description, because one thing that I find a lot of times is people actually don't pay attention to the job description. And hey, not to say you need to have 100% of everything on your job description, but at least pay attention to the basics, have that skill set that's required to have some sort of experience. So check the job description, do a little bit of research on the company or the person. And it could take a couple of reaches. So, hey, if you reach out one time and you don't get a response, don't immediately start getting aggressive and, demanding. Just kind of keep building that relationship, and maybe after the third or fourth time, you might get a response. Or, hey, I'm not actually doing the hiring myself, but if you want to reach out to the HR manager, that's her email address. So be patient, be strategic a little bit, and again, people do want to help people if they can, if it's in their capability, if it's in their capacity. And sometimes, like I think you said, Rick, is we don't know everyone's level of busyness. They could be on vacation. We don't have out of offices on LinkedIn and stuff like that. So if somebody doesn't respond to you right away, that doesn't mean that they can't help or they won't help. That just means maybe they've got a lot going on right now. So I would just say be respectful when it comes to outreaches, and people will be respectful back. I almost respond to almost all my messages when I can.
I have a word for that, Lori, too, when they get aggressive with you after you don't respond, and they're just kind of like random strangers that you don't respond right away and they get aggressive. I don't call it outreach. I call it outreach. Like little children. No outreach, please. That's not doing you any favors.
Yes,
definitely. Comments. I should say this. We have a couple comments. We have someone who wants to take you up, Omar, on your offer for guidance.
For sure. Just whoever the person is, if you can just drop Rick's full name on LinkedIn, I will definitely make some time and help you out. Fair?
Thanks. And he did also ask if we're taking questions. Normally, viewer, listener, yes, but unfortunately we are over time. So not now, but please come back next week or anytime. I apologize, but Marty, keeping you guys over time. I really appreciate it. This has been awesome. Thank you again to the three of you for being willing to do this and come back anytime. Thanks to everybody who's listening. If you are not listening to this live or you missed some of it or what have you, you can always get it anywhere that you get your podcasts within a couple of days. If you cannot find it where you get your podcasts, actually DM me and we'll fix that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rick, for having us. It was a great conversation. Really. Very nice to meet both you, Omar and Garris. Great conversation today.
Likewise, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.